we are going to have questions for Ms. White right now. So think of your questions. I'm sure it's a really interesting topic for a lot of people. We are going to start with questions from the advisory committee. Alex, can we start with you? Sure. Here's the mic.
Ms. White, what was the most surprising thing you discovered while doing research for your project?
Probably the most surprising thing I found was people who abuse guide dog privileges. I don't know why they think that's a good idea, because it takes a lot of concentration for a team to work together, and by people going to stores with their pet dogs, it can damage the reputation that guide dogs receive.
Thank you.
Well done, Ms. White. That was excellent. A big thank you to Alex and his friend Adrian for coming out Aiden, sorry, for coming out today. So I noticed that Alex uses a guide dog, whereas Aiden uses a cane. So I was wondering if you could give us, I know you touched on it on your paper, but why someone might choose to use a guide dog rather than a cane, or vice versa?
I guess it depends on personal preference and what you feel most comfortable with. I know people who have guide dogs, obviously they have to care for these dogs, which can be quite hard, whereas a white cane is much easier. You just fold it up and it's there. But I guess it all depends on what you want to use. Yeah, sure.
I'm Aiden, and I tried to get a guide dog when I was 18, and the requirements that the school had, the one that I went to, Guide Dogs for the Blind, were, for me, quite intensive. I had to do a route that was 6 blocks one way with a light intersection. And I had to walk it with my cane, and then I had to walk it back with an instructor. They did what's called a Juneau Walk, which is where the instructor holds a harness and acts like a dog, and you command it as you would a guide dog. I didn't pass that test. I'm reconsidering getting a dog now because of all the quiet cars. I don't know how strong any legislation is going to be against the quiet cars. So if you ever see a legislation to support noisemakers on quiet cars, please support that legislation so that people like me don't get hit on the road.
Thank you.
Great presentation. Good job, Isobel.
Thank you.
I have a question, or two questions actually, about the future of guide dogs. So I was wondering if in your research you were able to discern whether or not the number of guide and service dogs worldwide or in North America is increasing. And then the second part of my question, I noticed in your paper you talked about autism support dogs as being fairly new, like within the last 20 years. And so did you see any indication of what the next service dog will be for what condition or disorder?
To answer the first part of your question, there's definitely been an increase of people using guide and service dogs. I know a lot of schools have like 3-year waiting lists to get these dogs, especially for autism support, because it's such a great coping method for a lot of parents and families. And for the second part, there's a lot of dogs right now doing so many different things. So yeah, I'm sure there'll be many dogs doing lots of different things for people in the future.
Okay, does this work? First of all, I want to thank you for being a little part of this process, and I've been really impressed with your dedication, enthusiasm, and focus on the project. So it's been fun to watch. My question isn't really a question, but just wondering how you feel about from when you began this process, and you alluded to it a little bit at the end, but from when you began the process going through this to where you are today, and what sort of an influence that you feel it might have on your future life as working life.
I feel like this has given me a much clearer understanding about working dogs, and I have a much greater appreciation for guide dogs and service dogs. After doing this project, I learned so much about them, and I think they're a really great thing. Thank you.
Could say this at this point, but Isobel, as has been said several times over now, you did a good job, like a really good job on your presentation. And like Dee, I'm really impressed with your dedication during this project.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
thank you, Alex, because I would like to thank you for your dedication, because I know that you traveled to meetings here all the way from Surrey, and even today you came all the way from Surrey. It's a long trip. Thank you. So questions from the floor. I'm sure there's going to be lots. So we will start with Ava at the back.
Great job. I was wondering, how does the dog and the owner learn to trust each other?
I think that just takes time. I mean, you are putting, does take a lot of trust for a guide dog user to work with their dog. So I guess it just takes time. And the 3-week program that they go through for most schools, they do go over that, and then they learn how to trust each other.
Fantastic presentation, Ms. White. I have heard of other animals that are also used in the service industry. Do you have any knowledge of what they might be?
Yeah, I actually watched a video in the beginning of my project about a blind woman who was using a miniature pony as a guide animal. So she was allowed to go into everything a guide dog's allowed to go into. He's just bigger animal, yeah.
Awesome. Thank you.
No guide rabbits?
I don't think so.
How can you tell between a fake guide dog and a real guide dog?
One of the biggest indications is that there will be a logo on the harness, on the jacket, saying that the dog is from whatever school. So Xandra actually has a Guide Dogs for the Blind sticker on her handle here. So you can see here that, thank you, on the handle here, it says Guide Dogs for the Blind, so you know she's authentic and she actually came from that school. And BC and Alberta Guide Dogs will have that on their jacket as well, so that's one of the biggest indications. Thank you.
Ms. Wright, well done. Speaking of retributive justice, are there any fines or jail terms for people who use fake service dogs?
There is, yeah, there's, I know I read an article the other day about that in BC, the fines are becoming higher and higher because so many people are doing it now. So you get fined quite a lot of money if you're found with a fake service dog.
Great job. I was just wondering, can any type of dog be a guide dog?
Not necessarily, no. Labradors are the most common used, and actually in some schools, Labradors are a specific type of breed of lab for guide dogs. So they're not American, they're not British, they're a special type. I'm not quite sure what it is, but Labradors are mostly common used.
Do more people use canes or guide dogs when they're visually impaired?
I think more people use canes because getting a guide dog, it takes a long time for them to train. And because of the upcoming demand of guide dogs, schools can't keep up. So a lot more people use canes, but I think a lot of people maybe want to use guide dogs.
Excellent presentation, Ms. White. You mentioned $35,000 was a figure to train a dog. Do you have any sense of where that money is coming from? These are charitable organizations. So do you have a sense of how they're generating that kind of money? And in a certain period of time, how many guide dogs perhaps are produced from start to finish to go out into the world?
Alex, yeah, because I did some research on it, but I didn't find too much. Alex, what did you?
Alex, I'm giving you the mic.
So to break that up into two questions, where most of the money comes from, it really depends on the school. The larger schools have a lot of investments, everything from owning businesses to rental properties, as well as private donation dollars. That's another big one. To answer the second question as to how many dogs can be churned out, and that again varies from school to school based on their capacity. Guide Dogs for the Blind turns out typically 12 teams every 2 weeks. So does that answer the question? Yes, thank you. Okay.
Isobel, do you want to add anything, or are you good?
No, that's perfect.
I was just wondering your opinions on how the guide dog industry could improve.
know. I think there's a lot of improvements that can be made. I know training costs a lot of money and takes a really long time, so the schools can't keep up with the demand. So that maybe could be an improvement, and I think they are improving that at the moment.
What's your favorite breed of dog?
I have a lab, so I think I love labs the most.
Ms. White, I'm wondering if there's a lot of people in the audience that would love to train a guide dog puppy. Is there an age limit? Or a minimum age limit to train a puppy?
Well, I actually looked into it at the start of my project. I didn't tell you about it, Mom, because you'd say no. But I know specifically, if you want to train a Beast in Alberta guide dog puppy, you have to live close to Surrey or Delta, so you're next to the school. But I don't think there is a limit as long as you live with your parents and you can constantly care for this dog and train him.
Very well done. What made you pick guide dogs as your topic?
When I started doing research at the start of this, in September, I decided I definitely wanted to do guide dogs because they're so fascinating and I find them so interesting how they guide a person around. And then I did some more research to figure out what types of service dogs I wanted to do. And I chose autism support because, once again, they're so fascinating and they do so much. And therapy dogs because I think everyone knows a lot about therapy dogs, so it's easy for people to relate to my topic.
But would you ever think of training Ollie to become a service dog or
I
a
think
therapy
he's a little
dog?
too late to become a service dog. But I actually did ask some of the trainers that if they say got a puppy, so Ollie, he was a very big dog from the beginning. So I asked if they got a dog like that and he was very big, would he be automatically failed? So if he was in the school and they started training him and he passed all the tests, but he still was that big, then it wouldn't be an automatic fail. So.
Really well done. Do you think you want to have a career with animals?
For sure. Yeah, definitely. Maybe not training them, but in some capacity.
Is there a reason why only labs are like the most common service dog?
Yeah, I think because they have a very calm temperament and they're a good size as well, and they're really, for the most partly behaved. Yeah, they're pretty behaved, except for my dog, but.
Any questions in here?
Thank you very much, Ms. White. My father lives in a care facility, and I noticed recently that they have little stickers on the doors, and it's a puppy, and I'm thinking at some point some service dogs come in. I'm just wondering, through your research, did you find any kind of empirical data about the success or otherwise failure of a program like that? Like, did you find data that supported this initiative, for instance, at the care facility?
Like that they're beneficial to the patients, or? Yeah.
So the degree to which the program benefits the patients, is there, I mean, it looks, just your example here, walking by, everyone loves to be around, I mean, most people do love to be around a dog, and I'm just curious if there's data that supports this enterprise.
Yeah, for sure. I know it also depends on the person. You know, some people may not like dogs, so they may not be open to this kind of program. But yeah, there's definitely been lots of research to see if these dogs are actually beneficial, and it proves they are.
What would happen if a guide or service dog gets vicious against other people and or the owner?
The schools thoroughly train the dogs and test their behavior to make sure they aren't aggressive or show any aggressive behavior, because then they can get passed. There's many tests they go through. So test all these behaviors, and if they see at any point that the dog is showing signs, then it's an automatic fail. So there won't be a certified dog that's aggressive.
We're going to have two more questions, one from Ted, one from Joel.
Maybe a double whammy. Do handlers, when the dogs get older, do the handlers usually return their dogs to the school, or do they keep them?
It depends on the person. I mean, if you want to get another guide dog and you have your retired guide dog, then you have two dogs now. So, and this dog still needs walking and caring for. So a lot of people do give them back to the school, and then they can be adopted from the school, or people at the school adopt them. So they do go to homes in the end. But it all depends on the person, the circumstances they're in.
One really quick question. What's deep pressure therapy?
Deep pressure therapy is used most commonly for autistic children. Sometimes they have meltdowns and they get very worked up. And by, giving them a hug or putting pressure on their body, it can calm them down. So the dog lies on their lap, applying pressure to their legs, and the child can pet the dog and pat them, and it can calm them down pretty quickly.
Very good presentation. What's the main differences between guide dogs or service dogs and what was the other type of dog? Therapy dogs, yeah.
Therapy dogs. Therapy dogs are a type of service dog. So service dogs are just any dogs that help people. So therapy dogs are a type of service dog.
Very good presentation, Ms. White. Do you know what the ratio of dogs that are failed to dogs that pass the test for service dogs are?
40% of dogs who make it to the final exam pass, so 60% fail.
Not much chance for Ollie, I don't think.
No, no chance for Ollie.
Ms. White, you have done an excellent presentation, very engaging, and you've answered a lot of questions. So can we have a round of applause for Ms. White, please?